Hello, my friends. How are you today? We got the Discord up last week, and it's really interesting. Lots of discussions on there, so I encourage you guys to go check out the Discord. How's everybody doing today? What's up? What's up? What's up, Edu? How are you? Get John on here in a second. So today after the live, I'm going to be over on the Discord just continuing the discussion because there's always follow-up questions and interesting topics and already great discussions on there. Nice little community we're building, so please come join. How you guys doing? What up, Hendrik? What up, what up? How you guys doing? It's cold here in Southern California today. Let me grab John. What's up, everybody? It says waiting for John. Got some good questions this week. Some interesting topics to get into. Hello. Okay, I don't know why. Let me see. Oh, let's try this again, John. John, if you're there. What's up? What's up? Hey, Alex, how are you? Yeah, there might be some other good single topic discussions. Oh,
there we are.
What's up, man?
There we are.
How are you?
Good. It is cold in Southern California today.
Yeah, well, it's that time of year in California where, I see folks in London and New York where it's actually cold, where there's snow happening.
Yeah.
But California has our winter is like, if there's clouds, it's cold, and it gets cold at night. Not like even freezing cold, but cold enough to put on beanies.
Yeah.
But if the sun doesn't come out, it stays that way during the day too. So
so nice this morning. Went on a cold walk at 7:30. So nice.
Yeah, definitely being outside this time of year is nice in California. People say California doesn't have seasons, and it's true that we don't have blizzards, and we don't have to deal with all that. But it is nice to get some cool weather periodically, a little bit of rain. Nothing crazy. How you doing, man? I feel like I haven't talked to you in weeks, but of course it's been 1 week. But I feel like we usually talk during the week more. It seems like you've been busy. You've been running around. What have you been up to?
I had two nice staycation hotel nights on Friday and Saturday with Niku. I booked one and she booked the other, and it was kind of just a fun, let's just have a weekend. So that was just spontaneous, and I don't know. I think we texted a little on the weekend, but I was unresponsive on the on the threads. But I don't know, feeling good.
That's great, man. You deep into the work week already?
A little bit, honestly. It's easy stuff coming through and stuff I'm really excited about. So just nothing really stressful and not overly work flooded. So trying to do other things with time. Like I played tennis yesterday morning, which was so great. Read a lot this morning, walked outside, exercised, all the things that we always talk about, kind of prioritizing that.
One of the challenges when people get busy is that when, at least for me, and I know some other people like this too, when you get really busy and you're used to being busy, and then all of a sudden you have a little free time, I get a little panic, and I get a little bit of I need to be doing more stuff. And it's really good to be able to, this is, we always talk about meditation and habits and things like that. Good to be able to accept the free time and really enjoy it and be a person.
I meditated twice today already.
Damn.
Just I don't have anything crazy I have to do. I did a couple of notes this morning on one thing. Josh, my assistant's headed in with another mix to do today or tomorrow. Nothing's overly pressing. So kind of leaning into what you just said. And I'm just trying to get better at that in general. Doing nothing, but also doing things like reading this book. I listened to the newest Andrew Huberman Labs podcast this morning. Right. He just continues to blow my mind with distilling down these super high complex brain functionality concepts and digestible by humans. I understand what neuroplasticity is as of today.
You got to send me your favorite episode so I can get into it.
It's a series, and you kind of have to listen to it in a row. Okay. It's basically He's a neuroscience professor at Stanford, if you're unfamiliar. And it's basically he's just lecturing. He's just giving lectures to the mass. You know, like you'd probably get this in his class at Stanford, but instead he's just giving it to everybody. So it starts in the beginning of what he's going to get into, and it's monthly. So the first month was sleep and the importance of sleep and the affects of sleep. And today it's called Huberman Labs podcast for whoever just asked that. So basically today was the first in the neuroplasticity. What he's trying to get into is how after the age of 25 to 30 years old, you actually can change and learn new things. And, you know, I said in a DM to either him this morning or whoever manages the account, you know, after he thanked me for posting or whatever, which is like this kind of unravels for creatives, for our audience, kind of unravels the concept of being set in your ways. You know, it just kind of debunks that completely. Or people are like, I am who I am. It's like, well, you are who you are until you want to learn how to not be that way. And it takes real rigorous practice to not be a certain way if you first acknowledge you don't want to be, right? I mean, some people are set in their ways in a positive way, and we want them to stay that way and morally and ethically on a straight track and whatever. But if there's something about yourself that you think it's hopeless and you can't change, and that could be creatively, emotionally, relationally, whatever it is, he's basically saying it's possible. And you know, for my layman way to sum it up to people listening would be you have to get adrenaline or norepinephrine flooded through the brain. So highly focused and attentive energy. You could do that in many ways. I mean, you could drink caffeine, or you could run up and down a hill and do 50 push-ups or whatever it takes to get adrenalized, and then have enough acetylcholine in your brain to be, you know, to be released in two parts of the brain that I won't get into because I don't understand that part. But our part is getting the choline in. You can get choline with 4 eggs, or you can have supplementation of choline, right? So I just do eggs because I fucking love eggs, and I'll eat 4 eggs a day just because it tastes good.
And this guy says that setting these brain chemicals up is what is most likely to get you to change things, learn things.
Learn both, mixed with, and I'll get to the finishing point, the most important part, which is quality sleep. Quality sleep, or a concept that he has coined, I believe it's called non-sleep restfulness. Yeah. Which meditation is a version of non-sleep restfulness, like even walking or cycling, where you can't be focused acutely on one thing. Your peripherals are activating and nothing is super focused. That's another form of it, kind of just nothing really intense that you're thinking about, and kind of just exist as much in the now as possible, and not in a new agey way, just in a very like, this is what it is. Let's not think about what we just learned. But intense learning, like 90 minutes of intense learning, then at least 20 minutes of non-sleep restfulness or good night's sleep. And the combination of all of that is the way, and it's fucking difficult. But it works.
Yeah. I wonder, you know, you are, I don't know exactly how to talk about this. I feel like whenever I find myself doing this, that, and I know a lot of other people do this, that look into the nuances of research when their life isn't really set up to take advantage of it. Yours totally is. You have a very disciplined lifestyle. You have a consistent work thing that you're doing. You've refined a lot of the things you're doing. What it sounds like, all the things you describe starts with a consistent schedule and a lack of other inputs. Like the idea of unconscious inputs of social media and all that kind of stuff just completely eliminates the possibility for what you're talking about.
Yes. Right. But the point of you and I doing something like this is to dissect and distill down these overtly complex concepts. And say, this is the easiest way to do it. Wake up a half hour earlier, get outside and see sunlight so your circadian rhythm can start. before 9 is best, but before 10 if you can. If like you've had that late night and you want to do it before 10, like this is all the stuff he's talking about on the podcast, and I can just say it as a human.
Yep.
Like this is going to work. It's first you need to let's take a big step back, and because you're totally right, I have now positioned myself I'll be 35 in 2 weeks. And so have you. We're like later in our early stages of life. We're not middle aged by any means. We're not old, but we're definitely later in young adulthood. And nobody told me this when I was 17, 18 through 30. Like nobody would. This is new science. This is new research. It's new public platforms that are even getting stuff like this out to us, not in a university format. So, for example, for us creative people that maybe didn't go to college or didn't study psychology or these neuroscience, sociology, anything, we now have access to this. So it would be a shame to not share it on a platform like this. But of course, it's maybe, I don't even want to say it's easier for me because I have a regimented schedule, but it slots in for sure. But I choose to prioritize it. I mean, I mixed till 1 a.m. the other night after drinking wine on a Thursday night, and drank too much wine. That's out of my character, but still felt creative and wanted to mix this song. Like I broke all my rules. I'm still gonna break the rules sometimes, but for the but I didn't send the mix that night. I woke up in the morning and
You didn't FaceTime the artist.
I didn't FaceTime the artist.
Drunk at 1 a.m.
But I wanted to see what it was like to mix after being being on that high and on that good fucking Riesling or whatever. Oh, actually, it was a white Burgundy, but still, we all break the rules. But I've slotted it in, and it's easier for me to slot it in because I've done this practice. But that's what we're here for. I had a call with an engineer that I've been wanting to chat with for a bit yesterday morning, and just the things we were talking about. Like he's 28, and he's now finding his footing in the early stages of his more successful side of his career, and the same things like how to prioritize relationships, how to prioritize this stuff needs to be discussed as early as possible. So then when you hit that moment and that's the moment to pivot in your priority of focus, that it's possible. I didn't even know it was possible till a few years ago.
That's interesting. Yeah. And I don't know if we talked about this or talked about it on the Discord, but this idea that when, we've talked about this before, I think in some respects, that when you're starting out, you are trying to kind of maximize the output. You're maximizing you're saying yes to lots of things because nobody's paying you a bunch of money for things. You don't really have an arc. You don't really know what role you're going to play. Are you going to be a mix engineer? Are you going to be a producer? Are you going to be a vocal producer? Are you going to be an artist? Are you going to be a videographer? Like there's so many different things, music and music related. But even while maximizing that, when you're say 20 years old, it's still important to be thinking about long-term habits and ways to make yourself more efficient. And efficiency, as we've talked about many times before, is not just about maximizing the time when you're actively doing something, but creating habits around that of taking breaks, of meditation, of a good diet, of sleep, and all those things, which actually make your work better when you are maximizing.
So that's the key point, what you just said. And I should have said that in the earlier kind of rant that I went on. That's the key point. You're actually not even doing the learning or the changing or the growth in the time that you think you're doing it. Like I was just reading a chapter in a book that I've been reading slowly over the last 2 weeks, and I remember what that chapter is about, but it's not till tomorrow after I sleep that I'll actually understand what that chapter is about. And that's a really key point to understand. You're not doing these things to learn in that moment. In fact, it's impossible. You don't understand what you like. Take a creative move that you did, and you're like, "Whoa, that was exciting! I've never done anything like that before." It's not until the next day that it even sets in that was even as good of a move as you thought it was, or that wasn't as even inspired as it was. It's like why people say they draft emails and send it the next day. It's like in that moment, you're really not your best. I mean, you're not aware of what could be even better than that. That's why you have to let things marinate. You have to let
no
things
perspective
simmer.
On things. Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of
the fact that it's proven. Sorry, just because I love that you brought that up. Just the fact that it's proven that you're not learning in that moment, and you're learning later, after other activities of less intense focus. right? So the concept that I started on this whole episode with is super intense focus. Put the chemicals aside that I talked about. Just it's super intense focus followed by no focus, abstract focus.
Yep.
And that's the kind of key mixed with, we need that caffeine or that energy and that norepinephrine rush. But those are chemicals. And that part, you just kind of understand those two different chemicals between the acetylcholine and norepinephrine, adrenaline, same thing. And then it's really the focus to not focus.
Yeah. I'm going to make an analogy which may not hold up under scrutiny, but is like, I think is emotionally true. I think of learning things in the same way that I think of working out, which is, it was a big change in my perspective about fitness and working out. When someone said the phrase, or I read the phrase, you don't get bigger and stronger from working out your muscles. You get bigger and stronger from letting your muscles recover from working out. Yeah. And the same thing is true for building skills. You sit and you can play really intensely for 20 minutes or in bursts of 90 minutes or bursts of 5 minutes on and 5 minutes off, whatever. But allowing your brain the space, the easiest one is overnight, to subconsciously process and put the short-term memory stuff into the long-term memory and build those skills. It's really like the recovery and the perspective from the action that makes you good at it. And that's why when we talk about, and even like solving a problem in a production or hearing a mix a certain way or whatever, I always talk about fresh ears. What fresh ears really is your brain has processed it and you've gotten away from it, so you get a new perspective, but your brain is also doing lots of subconscious processing, which is really important. That's why we talk about sleep so much. I mean, that's whether it's working out, whether it's working, whatever it is. Yeah.
There's so many theories about breaks, and we've talked about it so much. But 90 minutes in, 20 minutes out of focus is kind of his formula. I've heard 50 minutes on, 10 minutes off for perspective breaks. Like go hard on a mix or a production or a piece of art or something for 50 minutes, and then like take 10, walk around.
My buddy Dave Elich, who's one of the best drummers in the world and maybe the drumming teacher now, who I've talked to him like right when we started this about coming on here. Maybe I'll bring him on here. He is so deep into the learning stuff, and I've talked to him at various points, and I'm probably going to misquote him, so hopefully he can come on correct. But when doing like drum rudiments and things where you're doing super focused, very particular thing, do like 5 minutes on of nonstop intensity, and then give your brain a break. And that's the most efficient thing.
Sprinting.
Yeah, exactly.
You're sprinting.
So it depends on what the action is, but no matter what it is, you need to take a break from it in order to absorb it in your brain or let your body recover, your muscles recover, your brain recover, whatever. It's a hugely important part of the process.
Yeah. So that was my morning.
Yeah, there you go. One more time, Huberman Labs. I think Bradley in the chat put it up there.
Yeah, he put it in there.
H-U-B-E-R, Huberman.
It's really unique approach because it feels like you're being lectured to in the best way. It's not a conversation. There's no one else. Maybe he'll bring in guests at a time, but it's his distillation of rigorous research, years, decades of research from other collaborators, people that he's never met, these famous scientists that just like debunking certain things and telling us the new science, right? Because science constantly changes, right? That's the whole point of it. It's like, it's right till it isn't anymore. Yep. But we only have the best that we have until we have more, right? Yep. So like, this is what we know now. And what's exciting about it to me is the fact that like later on in life, we can learn new things. It's like, it's good news. It's good news because, you're told like, look, I can't be a concert pianist, a virtuoso at this stage of my life. It's nearly impossible. But could I learn how to play some Stevie Wonder chord progressions as a non-trained pianist at this point? Yes, I can. Like, I don't know if that's going to be the best use of my time and my position at this point, but I actually have confidence in saying that I know I could. And that empowers me and should empower others to push forward into things that they've thought they've wanted to do. Like cooking would be my thing. Like, I didn't think I could be good at it, and then I've been doing it for 5 years, and I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah, you are really good at it. I can attest to that. But it came from practice, and it came from alertness, right? Like now knowing that the best times to be alert, like in the morning, when I start cooking in the morning and do a whole day,
nothing can take me out of that focus, right? Except for when I choose to take a break, because I'm realizing I need to take a break. Maybe something simmering and I'm going to take an hour before I chop the onions for the second dish or something. Like, now I'm realizing where and when alertness is prime. Like when you talk about the fresh ears thing that you just said, or fresh eyes, say on a visual art piece. Like, there are times in the day that are better for it, and there are activities best done before these things as well, right? Like there are optimal times. I can't remember the workout time, but there are 2 optimal times in a day that he talks about are best for working out and then muscle recovery. And it's not the ones we've ever heard, that you should eat your protein right after you work out. Like, you might actually want to wait 90 minutes after a workout to ingest food, or what, there's like, this is just new stuff. And I just love that. I love.
And Alex asked in the chat, what's the best amount of time and how do you know it's enough? And I think the reason to talk about this stuff is for people to just go try it, because everybody's body is different, everybody's brain is different, everybody's circadian rhythm. People, there's all this stuff about people who optimized athletic stuff, but later in the day. Some people are earlier in the day. There's all kinds.
Well, yeah, because if you do it too close to bed, like, you don't sleep as well, and then you kind of counteract the benefits of it anyway. So like, these things are important, but you have to experiment what's better for yourself.
Yeah, just think of it as an idea of intense work and then breaks, and just try those in different things and see what it does for your work. At the very least, you will get a perspective on your own brain that you probably didn't have before.
Yeah.
You want to get into a few questions?
Yeah, sure. Someone asked a question, or someone said something I just wanted to comment on. Yeah. It's too far up in the chat, but I don't to say who said it. But honestly, like, I've been getting a lot of DMs recently that are saying similar things to what was just mentioned. And I want to just say thank you. Like, people are trying out certain techniques that I'm bringing up and getting really great results from it. It's really cool that people are even like, yo, I like this idea, let me try it. And it works out for you. Because things might work out for me and not work out for other people, and that's fine too. But someone just mentioned the transient shaper after saturation on an 808, for example. It's like, yeah, I just did that yesterday. Like, it works for me. I'm glad it's working for you, and that you're even taking the time to try things that I'm mentioning, because both of us are trying not to prescribe the people what to do, but I definitely want to offer up some things that I do that seem to work for me, and it's cool that it works for y'all.
Yeah, definitely. Like, it's been interesting now that we've started the Discord server, and somebody asked if you're going to come get on it. So we'll see, make that happen at some point.
Yeah, that was part of not. We didn't talk much this week, but I wanted to, because you did mention to me about if I have any idea. I don't know what it is. I think I was on a Bitcoin one like years ago, and then I don't really know.
A lot of crypto on Discord.
Yeah, but I'd love to. I mean, I want to do whatever you're doing to get ideas out in the creative community. Like, I want to be a part of it. So I was actually just thinking about that on my walk this morning after this podcast. Was like, do we jump on Clubhouse and do a version of this on Clubhouse? Is this the Instagram live version? And then we do a Clubhouse version as well. It's different, like a different type of thing, because it's audio only. So, I mean, I could just be walking around the hood and we can just chat about something. Is it more specific to a philosophical approach on the club? Like, what do we, maybe we do more? I'm just open to doing more publicly, is I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah, man. And we should, it's good to talk about it on here so people can see and listen. And we should also talk about it offline. There's lots of options. The Discord stuff has been really interesting. Shout out Hendrik and Iggy and Bradley and Francesco, who've been helping build a lot of stuff behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. But it's really interesting that there, and I've been on Clubhouse a little bit as well. I think we can do all of it. We've been talking to some of the Reddit, some of the subreddits about doing an AMA.
Yeah.
Clubhouse, yeah, somebody's in there. Some of us are not cool enough for Clubhouse. Clubhouse is sort of exclusive now and kind of has its own weird culture. Well, you have to get invites and,
I've opened it twice and it seems cool.
Yeah. There's also the possibility of doing some Twitch stuff. I know a lot of people are like, can you do production breakdowns? Can John do a live mix?
I don't know. Like, I don't know how much benefit that's like. I don't know if that's my thing to do.
What I keep telling people is, as soon as like whatever the next thing is that you and I do together, there's like now 4 things, which I haven't told you all about, which I'm like, John should mix this and I'm producing it. that once we do that, if we
we'll
get the
do one
artist
of those.
permission, we should do something together where it's like production breakdown and mix, what I did, what you did, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, there's lots of interesting ways to get stuff out there. So for those of you that are on Discord, come join, come say hi after. We're going to be talking, but also hit us up in the DMs, other ideas, where you guys look into when you're consuming stuff like this, what's useful to you. I mean, certainly we can look at Clubhouse, we can look at Twitch. I'm going to do a few more. I got a whole bunch of mics that I'm going to set up and do some shootout stuff with like 5 mics and maybe do a YouTube video for it and put it up on, I don't know, there's a lot of interesting things to do. And then I also realize I have a day job of actually producing records. So I don't know how much time. But we'll figure it all out. But yeah, people, please hit us up with ideas. And like I said, I'll be on the Discord after and be chatting more.
Cool. Let's do some questions.
There's been a few questions. Oh, I like this one. And it could get into a larger discussion about workflow. So maybe I'll just like speak on it for a minute. Noah asked here, and maybe even some people talking about on the Discord, analog versus virtual synths. And there's something conceptually which I think is interesting here, which is not can a computer get the sound of, and converter shootout. We're going to do that too. Not can the computer get the same sound as you can get out of analog gear, because that's a debate that I think there are still a few things. There's still a few pieces of tube gear that I haven't heard, and certain kinds of saturation that I haven't heard replicated in the computer. But things like synthesizers, I'm pretty confident that if you gave me a patch on my Prophet 6, that I could, with enough time, get something that sounds pretty much indistinguishable in the computer, either through samples or emulators or whatever. But the point is not just, is that possible? And maybe some places it's not. Maybe a multiple oscillator with the analog drift and something about how those things combine can't quite be recreated in the computer. But even if it can, the reason, if you have a few $1,000s to spend on this sort of thing, the reason to get something like a Prophet or one of these analog synths is because the workflow is so much better. And it's not just that it's easier to get a sound quickly, which is important. Speed is important, but also like joy and tactile response. It's a different aspect of workflow than clicking on a screen and clicking and being on a mouse. And there's something really important about that I don't think people talk about enough. I mean, obviously people have talked about it, but the idea of playing something without a screen in your face, where you're actually having to physically, I mean, this is why I love my Juno 6 so much. And shout out Juno 60 owners and Juno 106 owners. The 6 is my favorite because there's no presets and no MIDI and no anything. So literally each time I touch a slider, it's a totally different sound. And that's a part of workflow that is really important to creatives. And, if you're a mixer and we're talking about synths, it's a different thing, but like aspects of your workflow that are there for something different than a computer / for fun, I think is an interesting topic. How do you think about those things? Yeah,
just one extra layer. I mean, whatever, all you said is 100% agree here. Is it's just more performative, right? And music should be performed. It's a weird sentence to have to say, but a lot of music is not performed. And just because you're automating up a filter cutoff on a screen, I mean, it's kind of performative, but it's not the same thing. And that's the je ne sais quoi that we can't really put our finger on when it comes to analog and digital. It's the performative nature. I think like the Roland Cloud, look, the synths are digital. You don't think Roland emulated the best versions of their 106 and all their Juno rack mods? Like, it's as good as, it sounds amazing. Yeah. Like the only thing different, because when I was producing, I mean, I have a real Juno and I have a Prophet, and then I would just go in the box because honestly, I thought it sounded better except for the noise. And then I can drive the tubes that I'm sending it through, right? So at the same, like the synth isn't really, the sound of the synth is similar, but like when you're analog, you're putting it through some sort of transformer or some tubes or something that gives it more characteristic, more unique. But then I was like, but I could just send those out through a hardware insert and back in through the tubes. And then, so there's benefits of both, but the performative nature is untouchable. Unless you have some crazy macro controller that does wild shit and you're so intuitive on it that it feels analog and it feels like an extension of you. but sonically speaking, they're interchangeable.
Yeah, and it's not to say there's a few questions that went by quickly. All of a sudden, chat is moving quicker than usual. I think we're getting more people watching these things than before. I mean, we're 45 people right now, but it seems like chat's moving kind of quickly. There were people asking, well, how much of a mix should be performed? I think it's not that performing something is better than programming something. That's not what we're saying at all. It's that music is a form of art that is about performance. And so even if you are doing everything 100% in the box with clicking, understanding how and why music is created in a performative nature is really important. So for me, understanding what it feels like to sweep a synthesizer is going to make me better at drawing it in when I need to do that.
And make me better at mixing that move.
Exactly.
Maybe
so
enhancing it with saturation later, just because
that's
I know
exactly
what
where I was going with it. Like understanding that when you're, and even like understanding the live element, when you're at a show and something gets super loud, and understanding the physiology of your ears and things are going to distort in your ears and compress, adding that little bit of saturation on that vocal when you're listening at a low volume when you're mixing helps you understand what the effect of this part is supposed to be and how it's performed. That's it's a really important aspect of whatever you're doing.
I think it's missing in most music. Opposite to what I was just mixing, which is fully performed. A lot of the record was a live marimba, and the chorus was played differently than the verse. The part was different. The second chorus was different than the first chorus. And these are things that I'm commenting on out loud because it shocked me because I haven't seen that in forever.
Yeah.
I was like, my brain actually wanted the continuous nature of the verse marimba to be in the chorus. And I even thought about copying and pasting it there just because the human brain kind of wants this repetitive, hypnotic approach to production these days. But I resisted the idea to do that. And instead, I changed the focus to a piano in the chorus and the background vocals and kind of lean into that. And that's performative in mixing, not riding the fader. It's it is kind of riding the fader, but in the box where you're drawing automation, I'm considering the performance and the nature of the arrangement as we always talk about. But it was wild to me to hear that it was such a completely different part. It almost sounded empty. But then when I shifted the perspective and the piano and the thicker keyboard sounds up in the chorus, it just changed the emotion of the chorus. Oh, that's cool. And that's just not how music is being made right now. And for someone that's a mix engineer who mixes hundreds of songs a year, I have an interesting vantage point to even make that comment. It's a lot of the songs are just blocked out like that. So something like this stands out. That's why we need to talk about this. I mean, I'm missing the vocals were completely different in every chorus. I don't remember the last time I mixed a song that the choruses weren't flown, or just it wasn't different enough to even realize if it was or not. Maybe a syllable was different in the
right,
or and I wouldn't know. But this was clearly a different performance. The same melody, but there were just different emphases, right? There were different harmonies, different ad libs, and things that made it feel like a journey. This is inspiring. 2-day mix. Normally mixes are 4 to 6 hours or sometimes less. This was a 2-day mix. It was exciting. It was that's performative to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you think about somebody in the chat said producing made me a better mixer, and I think there's something it's totally true, and I think there's something interesting about that topic. Tell me what you think about this. I haven't thought through this. It's just kind of off the top.
Let's do it.
But given that the technical knowledge is, let's go back to the 60s. Engineers at Abbey Road wearing white lab coats, they were engineers. They were technical guys. They knew, that was what they did. Engineering wasn't nearly the creative job that it became. Maybe Jeff Emmerich changed that sort of that era, engineering as a musical contribution. But initially engineering was electrical engineering, a technical thing. And although we talk about the importance of understanding lots of those fundamentals, because everybody has the ability to record something simple on their laptop, get a few $100 interface and a USB mic and make hit records, really. Does it mean that engineering is more than ever, it's important even if you're just a mix engineer to understand music more than perhaps you did in something like 1960, that it is important if you are a mix engineer to not be able to produce you have to show up and produce, but understand what it is to do all that stuff.
Yeah,
to make records and perform.
This could take hours to unpack. I love that. This is my life. So twice this week, I had a FaceTime with 2 different producers, both of which said, I hire, in their own words, but one of them I think was exactly this, I hire you to mix because you're a producer.
Yeah.
And I don't think that you have to be a producer to be a great mixer. So I'll start there. I think that you should develop relationships with producers that would allow you to go into the room and see what it's like to create as a producer on that level, or as a songwriter. If you've never been in the room in a creative process, it's hard to speak the language.
That's a really big point. Let's in order to communicate with the people that you're going to be working with, it's important to play that role at least at some point.
Well, I know I can feel through the production while I'm mixing the moment where everybody in the room jumped off the couch and was like, that's the melody. Like, that's the part. I can feel it most of the time. Yeah. And it's probably not real, but like it's a memory that I have that I can get back to. It's
an association you have with the process that comes from experience.
Yeah. Like when I get chills when something happens, I know 4 people in that room or 2 people or 10 people got the same feeling. So I want to maintain that feeling and elevate it if possible, or just allow it to be, right? So I was actually a part of this conversation yesterday morning with an engineer on the phone for an hour. Was like, I kind of want to write my own audio school curriculum. I think of it as a joke, and I'm hearing this, and I'm like, maybe I should do it. And the one I said to him was talking like an artist, like being an engineer that talks like an artist. Learn how to speak the color languages, the visceral emotional connections, not the 2K, 3K compression, like all these jargon things we talked about last week. But this is like another class. That's like one class. That's like, this is once a week, and I do 3 classes a week. And the second one now is like mixing like a producer. And like, for example, I pitched down a drum loop 8 semitones on this mix yesterday, and I changed the swing of the tambourine. Probably shouldn't talk about that. I was told that the drums feel so much better now. Like, they sounded fucking weird. Yeah. They didn't sound thick. They were taking up the same space as the vocal. And as soon as they went down, I mean, 8's a lot. It's usually like 2, 1 or 2. 8's a lot. But it just started sounding like a richer kind of like Kanye track from My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. And these crunchier, like clipping the drums a little bit, and just less clean, less compressed, and more full and low. You know, that's not a mix engineer's job. But I'm feeling the record, not even hearing it. I'm feeling it a certain way, and I'm looking for it. And that's from being in the room with someone that was like, yo, what if we just pitch that down an octave? And it's like, it's just not a mixer move. If you think about a mixer move, you're just going to boost a lot of low end to get that kick to hit, versus placing it lower in the arrangement, in the spectrum, in the sonic spectrum, and then it hits right because it just wasn't the right pitch. That's thinking like a producer. So I would love to teach classes on an approach to this. And I think that's what we're doing here. Yes. But I think it's a language game, and it's an understanding. I don't think you have to be a producer to be a good mixer. I think it very much informs feel, groove, and arrangement to have been in those rooms.
Man, there's so much in that that's so interesting, and like you said,
I could go on for hours with this.
Well, we've got to let's do this for another bunch of years.
I think I know. Well, I think what we're really getting down to is that, and I did actually write a paper on this, which I'm pretty sure the role of engineer is shifting. And I'm not saying I talk about the lines being blurred between the production and the mix, but I think that the only thing that separates the production and the mix is when a producer or a manager, someone says it's time to mix. Yeah. That's the only line that is crossed to say it's now time to mix. Or like, you're doing some sort of design process, and it's like it's time to render it and move on to the next step of distribution, right? Like, it's just language at that point. But for me, I'm only thinking about the production when I'm mixing. I'm not thinking about the mix process. That's just my role.
Yep.
So I think we should always mix musically and consider the feel of the record, not how it sounds always.
So let's touch on a couple things real quick. I think part of my overall goal with this, with you, with the few other people we've had on, other people we'll have on, the Discord server. Actually, I think the website is now up with show notes. I didn't even confirm this. I think it was up like last week. We just haven't even talked about it. But I believe Live with Matt Rad is up, and Bradley's been taking show notes. So if you go on there, livewithmattrad.com, I think is working. I guess we'll find out because somebody in the chat will probably go on it right now.
Yeah.
But Bradley's been taking these extensive show notes, which are basically an archive, almost like notes. Yeah, there you go. Sure is up. Almost like an archive, like you're taking notes in a class of us talking for an hour. The link to the Discord's in my bio. Maybe somebody can put it up there, but it's in my bio. It's in the Live with Matt Rad bio. It's an open invite, so come on, and I'll be talking after. But that's the reason to do the Discord. Iggy, who just hit up on there, is organizing the clips and with keywords so they can be searchable. I think we really are trying to create an educational mentorship thing, which you and I have talked about before. Like, can we create an archive that's like, here's just an insane amount of information. Let me pin his pin comment. That's an insane amount of information that's organized and searchable that people can learn a shitload. I mean, the idea is really to just give it all away and mentor in this sort of distance way that we're doing it. So I'm super into the idea of teaching a class, you teaching a class. Let's do something together. Let's build some educational. I don't know what it is. Let's just keep moving forward with it and keep building. And now we've got a bunch of great people helping out who are super smart, super technical, that want to learn, want to share. That's what the Discord is for, is really not just a place to go talk shit, but like, the first day we were up there, somebody asked, hey, I've been trying to figure out how to do this one thing in Logic. And immediately someone says, here's how you do it. It's clicking. It's like Pro Tools. And they're like, oh shit, I've been trying to figure this out. That's what we want to create here. Sorry, that's just my monologue on it. I think we definitely want to do that. And then in terms of, yeah, I mean, somebody wrote in the chat, roles are kind of blending. I mean, I do jobs that are not the producer's job, where I'm like doing a full on mix, and then I send my mix off to a mixer, and then they mix it. And that's great. Like, and the shit sounds better. And I'm not worried about that. Just like you're not worried about in the quote unquote mix stage doing things that might be considered production. I think we're in this era where
just don't ask for it. If it's not offered to you, don't ask for it. I'm not going to ask for, more points or credit because I did that move. I think it's a production move. I'm not going to lie. I mean, the couple people that know I did that are like, yo, but that's a producer move. It's like, yo, but it sounds better. I don't care. The record's better because of it. Yeah. What I need, you're going to pay me an extra whatever dollars because I did, like, why?
Well,
so
and you're going to
have
to
shit out feeling right.
And you're going to say, hey, I knew you didn't hire, but I did this thing and now you like it. So why, you have to give me more money. And we talked about this actually on the Discord this week, what you want to be, or maybe it's in DMs, I don't know. What you want to be is the person that gets hired over and over. And if you're a person who, as an engineer, makes production contributions that lead to an amazing record, an amazing big hit record, but it turns out you're going to get hired. Yeah, you don't have a point on it. But if it's a big hit, your price just goes up. You get points next time, and that artist or band or label or everybody around is going to want to work with you forever.
That happened to me.
Don't stress about that shit. Yeah.
One of the biggest songs I worked on, I didn't get a point. I have a point on everything else since because of that. We'll just keep it that simple. But I do want to add one more thing to what we were talking about, and just kind of a personal story. Because a lot of people on here know, and for those that don't know, Tony Maserati was my mentor for 5 years. And he basically straight up told me not to be a mix engineer. He's like, you know how to produce. You're lucky enough to have the skills to do it. Get in sessions. Let's get you a pub deal. And you're going to be a producer who can also mix, but you're going to be a producer. And I went down a rabbit hole for 2-3 years, being in back-to-back sessions and staying up late at night and mixing records to pay bills, whether it's for him or for my own clients. And I was actually like, I went through a bunch of months to a year being kind of bummed that when I went back to mixing and doubling down on mixing, that like I had missed out on a few years. But when I really sat with it and reflected on it, that was invaluable time spent.
100%.
getting no real cuts. Like a couple of cuts came out with some artists that are like C, B level, and I made $0 from it. The experience was invaluable of what I'm talking about, like how to make the arrangement work when you just, something just isn't working, and like they're sending it to you to finish, and you can confidently make bolder moves because you kind of understand the intention that could have happened in the room and just missed because of some variable that happened that day. Anything from hunger to a lack of a tool.
Basically, my whole life is that, and I haven't settled on anything.
Yeah,
but that's what's made me a successful record producer.
But you like that. You thrive in that. We talk about that on a lot of episodes. That's what you like. I don't like it, and I'm glad I found this because I wouldn't be as successful as you are as a I do everything person. Yeah. I'm too hyper focused. To a fault, I'm sure you would agree too.
No, it's just the difference, and this is why we complement each other nicely. You go down a very singular rabbit hole more often than I do, and so I get that from you, and I also think that I maybe pull you back from that in some conversational way. Yeah. I think it's a great thing, and that's the thing we always talk about is when you're starting out, do a million things, try a lot of stuff. And then you'll find the thing that you like the most, that's the most profitable, that's the most soul fulfilling, and you can weigh those things, because we do have, like somebody said, the roles are blurred now. Like I've said this before, but if I were 14 right now and just discovering music, I would be a producer, mixer, artist, photographer, fashion designer, YouTuber, TikToker. I would just do all that shit. Yeah. But I'm 37 now, so I produce records.
Well, the ironic part about all of this in the Tony story was Tony said to me before the production move back to the mix move, invaluable advice was, you do what people pay you to do. And I was like, that's interesting because people pay me to mix. Why are you telling me to be a producer? And that was the irony, because now people pay me to mix very consistently. And I'm like, I'm clearly a mixer. So once I remembered that advice, doubled down on it, I got better at it. Right. Yeah. Like I got, I'm still not, getting hired by everybody, but I get consistently hired by the same people. So I must be doing something right. And that's, that just took some back and forth and self-reflection and,
it's the hero's journey. It's very Joseph Campbell. You had to leave home and you get a test and you do a different thing, but then all of a sudden you come back home and you've learned a lesson and now you're better for it.
A lot of lessons. So we haven't really answered any questions.
No, we haven't answered any questions today. I hope that's okay with you guys, because we just do what we want. But that's why we have the Discord, so we can get specific questions after for all the shit that we didn't talk about. There was one holdover question. Maybe we just do some kind of rapid fire stuff. I don't know how much rapid fire. Mixed by Wong asked, what are your go-tos when you need to level out and balance vocal resonances? This is a combination of a lot of different things I've talked about. Sorry, apparently a call just came through. And,
I lost you.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about. Vocal resonances. I think any resonances, that's the genius of the computer, is things like Q10, things like saturator.
I don't know about that.
Things like the Pro Q3 does it as well.
Sure.
I
don't know about that. Hold on. Now I'm seeing a better question in the thread, which is really on point of what we've been talking about. So we should answer it instead of that, because that's just something more technical. Do you have to, is there a way to be a good mixer without being a tech geek? And I just want to say straight up, I am not a tech geek. I am not the best troubleshooter. I understand Pro Tools really well. I don't fix my tube gear. I do take out tubes and put them in. I pay someone to fix my gear when it goes bad. I am not a super tech geek. I think I'm a very even split of creative to tech brain, maybe 60-40 on the technical aspect, because I understand technical techniques in order to get sounds to do a certain thing. But I am definitely not a tech geek. So I want to answer that loud and proud, because don't trust me with your computer. I'm not going to code software, and I'm not going to build you a compressor by hand. I can solder, but I don't want to.
Well, I think that's exactly the point of a lot of this stuff, is that you understand it well enough to hire somebody who's a real expert and communicate with them.
Yeah.
And anything else is, if it's not your primary job and it's not interesting to you, you don't really need to know it. But you know enough technical stuff to be able to repair things, communicate with people, and
explain a problem.
Yeah.
And keep my computer working all the time.
Yeah.
You know, like it's flawless. We don't really have crashes between Josh and I. The system is working. But okay, what did he say? Yeah, but understanding exactly what phase cancellation is and linear phase. Yeah, but that's stuff that's ear training. That's understanding with visual components and help in analyzers. Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I'm 50-50 or 60-40 geek.
Yeah.
Is like, yeah, of course I understand that. You're an engineer. You have to understand that. That doesn't sound like technical to me.
No, that's an hour on Google and a little experimentation, which is,
and also
maybe that's more than a lot of people do, but like, yeah, that's terminology.
No, but that's math and music. That's not technical, like geek stuff. I don't know. That's gray area. Like, if you're going to be a producer, you should understand phase alignment. You should understand how a bass reacts with a bass drum. Like every great producer knows to keep their kick drum and their bass in phase.
Here's how
that's just the job. Exactly. Thank you.
Your technical knowledge and my technical knowledge, I think, is the same, although there are things that don't apply to our job that we know deeply. You understand the why as deep as it needs to be to do your job at the highest level.
Yeah.
And what that means is that there are lots of technical things which you and I don't know. And there's lots of technical things that we do know, but the technical things that we do know really just apply to exactly the job that we're doing. Like how do you make an 808 slap? Well, you have to learn about phase, and you have to learn about nudging, and you have to learn about waveforms, and you have to understand what comb filtering is. But that just comes from Googling and learning and
but
doing
you
it a
don't
bunch.
have to remember or ever learn how to write automation on an SSL console. I don't remember how to do that. I used to know how. And I don't remember how to bias a tape machine. I used to know how. It's just that's not in my workflow. If someone wanted me to mix on tape, one, I would talk them out of it. Two, if they insisted, I would get an assistant that knows how to run that aspect of it so I can do my best job and they can also get paid and do their best job. And that's, I think, what it is.
And so your knowledge with something like tape machines, as well as mine, and I've calibrated tape machines in the past too, is I understand how they sound and why people like them. And that's kind of the important part. Like what is it that people like about them and how can I apply that? Just the last thing on vocal resonances, and a bunch of people put Soothe 2 on there as a plugin for that. I don't
it's good
use that much, but
I never use it. If it's on a session and I bypass it and it's not as good, I'll leave it. I never put it on. So I can't speak to it as being as great as everyone else says it is. I think people are hearing something about it that's good. I think it's placebo. I think it's a little heavy-handed. I think you're actually smearing the sound a bit too much, so it's less punchy and less in your face. Again, that could work on things like pianos or strings, pads that have less articulation. Yes, Spectral Shaper sounds better, I think, personally. That's Kit Cutler just said that. I talk about that a lot. I love that tool. I think you're smearing sounds with Soothe, and you think it sounds better because it sounds softer, less abrasive, but I think you're losing clarity. I don't think that's a great tool, personally.
Well, this is the great balancing act between transient and I will put in the same category, sort of like mid-range focus and this sort of saturation softening thing, and the balance of those. When you put a Soothe or a Saturn 2 or one of these things that's going to smear things a little bit, what do you do to make up for that, and what is the balance between them? You can add Soothe, you can add some saturators to get density, but you're going to sacrifice clarity, and it's just a balance between those two things. People saying Soothe is trash.
I like Golf Floss. I like Golf Floss in 5% or less.
You like
over
what?
that, the Golf Floss. someone's mentioning in a couple of ways. The golf loss is great in less than 5%. Even on their website, the creators say if you're using it over more than 5%, there's problems elsewhere in your mix.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is with a lot of these things, if you're having to do massive things to get harshness out of the vocal, you're just going to have a harsh vocal or a not good vocal. It's just not a good recording. I'm actually dealing with that right now, where I've had 3 different sessions with 3 different versions of the processing on the same vocal, and they all sound kind of bad because it was just recorded too loud with too much compression going into the computer. And so when the chorus hits the big note, everything just goes there's no air. So I'm having to like add clip EQ for certain things to pretend like there's air. It's just a fucking mess. And at a certain point, there's no amount of
there's no fixing.
It's just like,
well, for people that are saying they're getting great results out of it, awesome. Keep using it. Keep doing it. I would just be mindful of transients and low end after the fact. Just something to check in on.
Yeah, at the end of the day, if it sounds good, it's good.
Yeah.
However you get there.
Let's hit one more random question.
Yeah, let's hit one more. I can get into a couple of these on the Discord. Angel asked an interesting question. I don't know if we're through it enough to know what the answer is, but he asked in what ways, they asked in what ways has the pandemic affected the music industry irreversibly for the better? How have things gotten better through the pandemic? Maybe we can go on a positive note.
It's a good question. I had yesterday's conversation with an engineer homie was a real positive. An artist that he is working with on the regular, because an artist of note, a great artist, an inventive artist, someone you'd want to be in the room with regularly, basically said to him, like, I don't want to have sessions with people. They'll send me beats. I need someone that's going to quarantine and be responsible and help me make this album. And they're in every day. And he's inspired to be there. And because he's in the room only with her, she trusts him now and asks for ideas. And he's gotten some additional production or production on records. And I think the quarantine has helped artists that otherwise wouldn't trust engineers, forced to put them in a space where they have no choice but to, and then rely upon. And then it can go both ways. You'll never get hired again because you're the worst in the room with this artist, or you are a warm person and compassionate, understanding, and quiet when need to be, and inspiring, and asking the right questions and making the right moves, efficient, fast, all the right things. So that's a positive story.
There's definitely a lot more. There's deeper relationships that are happening for the people that are around each other. That are like, I've done more 3 or 4 day sessions in person with people because we can't be going and seeing different people every other day without running the risk of spreading COVID. So I've spent, I was with Bobby for 3 or 4 days, my buddy Bobby Brackens, and it's like we isolate the week before, get a test, and then come stay at the house. And working for 3 or 4 days straight, just with one person, yields really interesting results. And it's kind of better than the old way of, doing a session. I'm now definitely trying to do 2 or 3 day sessions going forward, because spending one day is tough. And the flip side of that is doing things on Zoom presents new challenges to people, to songwriters that I think open up people's ability to do stuff. I mean, a lot of singers and artists would never have recorded their own vocals before the pandemic, and now are becoming engineers and learning how to vocal produce. And I wrote a song. And then
respecting the process after, when they realize how hard it was to capture it good, being more forgiving in the mix or something when it's not right, and being more open to the idea of, well, we might have to recut that because of a technical reason, and understanding why we might bring that up at certain point on records.
And the other big thing, maybe we can end on this. The other big thing, oh man, this is actually perfect. I should do this professionally. The other big thing that has happened during the pandemic is that it has allowed conversations like this to happen, and communities around this sort of stuff to be created. Before, people would really have to think, they really have to rely on, I have to go somewhere and I have to have an internship at a studio, or I have to be in Los Angeles. And maybe the answer is communities like this can be created and people can learn a lot without having to be in London or be in LA. Although ultimately, as we've talked about, being in a physical place with other people who are like-minded, where you can run into, you can go have a drink with them, you can have lunch, you can drop by the studio. Those are really important things that once this stuff dies down, I encourage everybody to figure out how to do that. But the ability to have these conversations, and right after this, we'll be on the Discord talking more, people helping each other out. I think it's encouraged a lot of that in this great community that maybe didn't exist in the same way before.
Yeah. Let's end on that.
Those are my thoughts.
Happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, man. And we'll get you on Discord. We should talk more philosophically and long-term about maybe doing some sort of class, organization, curriculum, something. Because I think there's something really interesting there. And shout out to all the guys that are helping out with the Discord and the cutting up clips and the website and all that. Hit us up. Jon, love you very much. Always a pleasure. And,
love you too. I should also add that just on our Conversations podcast, our episode with OG Volta, the homies, is up. Speaking about process and collaboration, it's kind of on the money here. So check that out at our podcast too.
Awesome. And I love the one with Kian. Who's one of my favorites in the whole world. It was so cool to hear you guys all chat and all that. So everybody check out the Conversations podcast too. Really, really interesting long form discussion. So thank you, Jon.
Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye, guys.